What movie scares the hell out of you that isn't a horror movie at all? Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Not so much now, but as a child seeing a cartoon die while getting dipped in acid was horrifying. The original Alice in Wonderland. It terrified me as a kid that she couldn't find her way home, nobody was really helping her, she was just stuck. As a child I had nightmares for years that the aliens from Mars Attacks were under my bed and would disintegrate me with that gun of theirs. Edit, wow, didn't realize so many children were just as traumatized as me by a family comedy. The Brave Little Toaster. That'll mess with you as a kid. My girl when Macaulay Culkin gets stung to death by bees. Childhood me was scared of bees for quite a while. My one sister was terrified of bees growing up. Even caused a car accident that nearly killed my mom because there was a bee in the car. I always thought her fear came from this movie and completely irrational. Nope. I found out way later she was actually attacked by a swarm of bees when she was little. As a kid, The Mummy legit freaked me out. And by the mummy, I mean those goddamn ducking scarabs. I was watching this movie and my 4-year-old daughter walked in right when the one dude got completely devoured by scarabs. She went, "Stop. Rewind it. I want to see that guy get eaten by bugs again. I need to keep an eye on her." Large Marge gave me my first heart palpitation. Edit, thanks for the awards everyone. Now I'm a rebel. I loved that movie as a kid, but there was always something unsettling about it. It wasn't till I grew up that I learned it was Tim Burton's first film and that's where he first worked with Danny Elfman. The clown doctors with his bike scene makes so much sense now. I'm surprised I was never traumatized by Disney's Pinocchio as a child, because watching it as an adult, there are moments that are straight up nightmare fuel. Yes. Especially the scene when the boys turn into donkeys. Absolutely terrifying. I'm still afraid to smoke cigars and play pool before breaking things. The Truman Show. His belief that he was living in the real world was so complete for so long. The idea that at any moment your world could start fracturing apart into a horror story like that. I get the shivers edit, and if I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Obligatory edit, thanks for my first gold. Glad this comment is now my Reddit reigning achievement by 3x my best post. Spy Kids am scared of the thumb dudes. The part where they played that one songs backwards to reveal the hidden message scared me when I was little. Same, it's a horrific fate to imagine. Being turned into a monster and being a slave to some maniac, making pleas for help by singing backwards. I know it was meant to be a comedy and all, but Mars Attacks. Call it deep-seated child trauma from seeing it when I was too young. Watching people get disintegrated into piles of bones gave me nightmares for weeks. I know a few infectious diseases researchers and epidemiologists and they all said Contagion, 2011, was both extremely accurate and just a matter of time. I just don't know if it's not a horror movie. What was funny were the surprising inaccuracies in many pandemic-related movies and books. For example, instead of being filthy, the streets were cleaner because no one went outside. And then there was the hoarding of toilet paper. No one expected that. If anyone tried to put that in a book or movie, it would have been seen as a monumental joke. I've always believed that lots of smart people carefully thinking something through only gives a slight chance of being right. The real world is very hard to predict even as it seems obvious in hindsight. The trouble is that stupid people are way harder to predict than smart people. Like I work with a lot of very smart, hardworking people. It's pretty easy to figure out what they'll do. My dumbass cousin? Dude's a loose cannon, I got no idea. The Dark Crystal, what the duck is that thing? The Gelflings getting their life essence drained traumatized me as a kid. Besides the horror, there was something weirdly sexual about it. I've never been able to figure out why it seemed that way, but it sure did mess with my head. Edit, podlings, not Gelflings. The intro of X-Files scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. That music still freaks my sister out. Unsolved Mysteries had a way spookier theme. I swear it played in the background of a nightmare I had induced from the same show. My mom used to watch that after I went to bed. I would always yell at her to change the channel when that ducking theme played. Even when I hear it now, I'm 40, it freaks me out a little. Return to Oz. Saw it when I was 5. Had nightmares about the Wheelers for years. Dorothy Gal. Ducking headless woman chasing a terrified girl through a corridor full of screaming disembodied heads. Stone monsters morphing into agonized, writhing shapes while whispering poison. Poison. The strong implication that it's all just a trauma dream by Dorothy's broken mind after having been forced to undergo electroshock therapy. Return to Oz is blatantly designed to be a horror movie for children. Imagine going into that with your young child expecting the Wizard of Oz style schmaltzy family fun. No, sorry, but here's a cackling, grotesque, self-mutilating psychopath falling into a desert so you can watch his face turn into sand and crumble away. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Sure, seems like a harmless movie, but the scenes with the child catcher are super creepy. Edit, thanks for the awards. Lollipops, and Alfrey Tuda IIE. Jumanji. As a kid I used to have nightmares about those monkeys chasing me. My statistics professor said that the scariest movie he's ever seen was The Big Short. Edit, Lamau I posted this before I clocked into work, came back, and found I had like 2K upvotes. E.T. Everyone Can Daze It's a Family Kids movie, no. That damn alien scared the shit out of me in the cornfield scene no. Edit, thanks my first award and yes E.T. is just a straight up horror film to me as well to many others, don't befriend the weird alien. The scene where they find E.T. all pale and sickly in the woods always freaked me out. Watership Down. Too Many Grown-Ups, a movie about bunnies. Perfect for Easter. Later, kids, 1,000-Yard Stare. My brother worked in a video rental store and every time a parent brought that movie, they all there would warn about it. But some would still rent it and return it later angry about it and the manager would back up the employees about it. They all had seen it or knew about it. But some parent always knew better. SMH. They know what's best for their kids until they ducked up and then it's your fault. Fucking retail. Ever watched Pinocchio as an adult? That is effed up. The scene with the boy turning into a donkey and losing his ST over it is downright traumatic and not the kind of body horror one expects from a kid's film. It's the way he screams mama. That always gets me, mainly because I know I would have done the same thing if that happened to me as a kid. Then the part later on with the donkey who could still talk and is like I want my mama. Even though it's just a cartoon, it's still enough to make your heart break, knowing these poor kids will never see their parents again and will be forced into manual labor for the rest of their lives. Yeah, it's super dark. People moaning for their mums also reminds me of Saving Private Ryan, which is equally traumatic. Matilda. The abuse is ducking terrifying and I remember thinking who the fuck decided Roald Dahl stories are for kids? I loved Roald Dahl as a kid, his books seemed more like how life is, sorta dark, cruel, but also silly, magical and unreal at the same time. I think that childhood as we know it from the 20th century is a pretty new thing in the history of man. Most kids from eons past had rough lives and were put to work, sexualized, abused, and saw death unflinchingly. Dahl has written horror shorts for adults. Hestark. I was very young when I first saw the original Ghostbusters. I was not expecting the library ghost to do that. When I was a kid, I was scared of ghosts. So I imagined the Ghostbusters were under my bed waiting to zap anything that tried to get me. Problem solved lol. I find her to be very unsettling because it's a scenario that would definitely happen with countless numbers of people. 5 to 8 years ago my wife and I were on a long flight. She watched her and I watched the Lego movie. We both enjoyed the movies, and then thought we should switch so we can talk about these. I lasted about 25 minutes before shutting off her and she lasted about 20 minutes before shutting off the Lego movie. I am convinced that both are good movies that I would really enjoy in a vacuum, but after watching one, the other is absolutely unpalatable for being the polar opposite energy level. Kinda fun to consider. I kinda wanna propose this double feature to my movie group. Mind break movie mashups. We need to talk about Kevin. Technically a thriller drama, but it was so unsettling. Actually worked as an extra on this film when it was being made. We were not informed about the prompt and I should not have excitedly watched this with my parents upon release with zero context. I bet you actually knew and gave them a dead-eyed murder stare the entire time they were watching. We need to talk about Euvoya.